I think the truth has to be told. And it's about all of the political parties. Every single one of them out there at the minute. There is nothing to choose between any of them. We could start with Reform and his net zero, Richard Tice's net zero migration, which means one in, one out. So that means we lose 500,000 retiree Brits who are getting out while the going's good, going to Florida, Spain, Portugal, wherever they can go, France, to enjoy their happy retirement. And for every single one Brit that's been productive, made loads of money and managed to leave the country, we're going to get people coming in from a very, very diverse background. Well, not a very diverse background, probably from North Africa, the Middle East, Pakistan or Afghanistan. That's what we're trading for. We're trading for retired bankers, retired lawyers, retired doctors, for people that can come in and do minimum wage jobs and help destroy the British working class. And by the way, I'm not blaming the people that are coming into this country. I'm really not. My issue is with the politicians that have facilitated the destruction of the British working class. And this has been going on since the 1980s. Everybody crows about how great Margaret Thatcher was. Oh, really? The woman that closed the coal mines down. The woman that destroyed heavy industry. The woman that offshored everything or started the offshoring of everything. Was she really such a great leader? Well, that's for you to decide. And I'm sure history has already judged on whether she was a great leader or not. Don't get me wrong. She did a lot of good in fighting terrorism. She did a lot of good when she sent the task force down to the Falklands. But in the long term, was her legacy good? But fast forward the next, 40 years, almost since Thatcher left power. And we have had a series of prime ministers who have just administered decline, administered the undermining of patriotism, administered particularly the undermining of the British working class. The British working class has been thrown under the bus by successive administrations, and not just thrown under the bus economically, and economically they have, and let's talk about that now. Housing. If you're a young fella now, you want to get married, you want to buy a house, you want to raise a family, how can you do that if you're a working class lad? Even if you've got a trade, when you start going through that process of apprenticeship, it's a long time before you start earning big money. How can you do that if you don't have a trade? How can you do that if you go in the military and come out of the military? How can you get decent, affordable housing and be aspirational? You see, the state and the elites do not understand what the British working class want. The British working class want to be self-sufficient. They want you lot to leave us alone. We don't want you sticking your noses in our business. We don't want you taxing us to death when we finally make a bit of money. We don't want your benefits. We don't want to be on DLA or whatever it's called now. We want to earn our own money and be proud of earning our own money and survive and be self-sufficient away from you rabble and you elitists in the Westminster bubble. The British working class, I think it'd be fair to say, on the whole, the British working class despise the political establishment. We absolutely despise you. We see you as treacherous. We see you as more interested in Davos, the World Economic Forum, and COP whatever number it is, than in your own people. We see you literally choking your people to death with net zero, with electric vehicles that nobody can afford, making fuel and food more expensive all the time. And then we look at the housing crisis and think about this housing crisis. Think about that young lad that I talked about earlier. How is the young lad that starts working in Tesco? He's no trade. He's no great education. Maybe he doesn't even get a job. He's living literally on the poverty line. And the government is doing absolutely nothing to solve that problem. When I left school, the house I bought in 1990 cost me £27,500. And even then it was a stretch to get a deposit. You know, people just don't have big, massive chunks of money lying about. So something needs to be done about the housing crisis. But why is there a housing crisis? Well, could it be because we're importing millions upon millions of people over the past 10, 20 years? They've all got to live somewhere. And again, this isn't a judgment on the people that are coming into the country. This video is not about that. This video is about economic facts. But the reality is, when you have people coming into the country that have to be housed, and of course the government seems to be able to find the people that come into the country affordable housing, just not the lad that's maybe his family's lived in Middlesbrough or Newcastle or Manchester since the 1800s. It's very difficult to find that lad affordable housing and let him set up a family and have a wife and kids. And then you look at the employment prospects. I was talking to someone today, works in the care sector, and they were saying that the wages are just horrendous. You get paid more working in Tesco's than you do as a carer. And if you knew what carers do, they really take pride in their work. They actually love the people that they're caring for, the elderly clients as they call them. And they get paid under £12 an hour for that. And out of that, they have to pay their own fuel as well. You see a problem here? Probably one of the most valuable jobs that anybody can do in terms of what it does for the population is care for the elderly. Now, there's a whole question about whether the elderly should be cared for more by their families than by the state and by private companies. That's a whole different debate. But the men and women that work in that sector have a great care for the people that they work for. And it is a vocation. And they get paid a pittance. They get paid an absolute pittance. How are you meant to afford to rear a family, to raise a family, to have kids and work in that sort of situation? So the state has deliberately trapped and demoralised the British working class. And it's about time they backed off. It's about time they stopped importing cheap labour. It's about time something was done about the housing crisis. Do you know, I wouldn't care if house prices fell by 50% tomorrow morning, if it meant young people could get on the property ladder. I mean that. It's about time there was a housing crash, but there won't be, because there's a housing shortage. And why is there a housing shortage? One, there's not enough affordable homes being built, and two, there's too many people coming into the country who need to be housed. It is just economics. It's as simple as that. So to Rishi and Keir Starmer and all these open borders fanatics, don't pretend you care about the working class or even understand what it's like to live in the 21st century as a young working class person. You do not understand it. I very much doubt your children are struggling with what most working class kids are struggling with. Your despicable, patronising attitude towards the British people is shameful. And like I say, I don't see much better from Richard Tice. They're all cut from the same cloth. He's just an old Tory anyway. There needs to be something new. There needs to be a party of the people. And I'm not talking about socialism. I'm talking about something that's free of left and right. Something that just does what's right for the people. And that's what needs to happen. And you ain't going to get it from Rishi. You ain't going to get it from Keir Starmer. You certainly not get it from that slithering snake, Jeremy Hunt. And even Cameron, David Cameron, the man who worked on the Belt and Road Initiative for 2 years when he left being Prime Minister, working for the CCCP, I believe. Fact check me on that. Things have got to change. Things have got to change. There needs to be a party raised up, or a political movement raised up, that stands for the people and does something for the real people of this country, for the backbone of this country, for the people that built this country that have been despised and rejected by its elites. It's different. When there's a war, they're complaining now that nobody wants to go and fight a war for them. Well, what a surprise. You've shafted us for the past 50 years. Is it any wonder nobody wants to sign up and fight for you? And your stupid vanity projects. Anyway, rant over. I'm sick of them. I want them all out. I want something completely new. We're not going to get it for this election. We're going to have to suffer the lunacy of the loony left, who do not care about the British working class. They pretend they do, but they don't. They have their little sections, their little blocks of voters that will vote for them, and they're relying on that. If you're a Brit, you're working class, nobody cares among the political elite. They would rather we all disappeared off the face of the earth tomorrow, and that's the truth. Well, we want you to leave, and we want you to leave us alone. See you all soon.